My beloved child. Someone, somewhere, has just crossed a line they can never uncross again. A realization struck them quietly at first, like a whisper they tried to ignore, but it refused to leave. They finally saw what had been standing in front of them all along. They understood that you were not an option. You were the answer. Not a replacement. Not a backup. You were the one presence that changed everything they thought they knew. This realization did not arrive gently. It arrived with weight, with pressure, with memories rushing back all at once. Every moment they dismissed you. Every time they underestimated your value. Every second they chose comfort over truth. All of it collided inside them at the same time. And now, they are shaken. Because when someone finally understands who you truly are, their entire inner world begins to rearrange itself. They are no longer at peace. They are no longer certain. They are no longer able to pretend that you were ordinary. Something irreversible has begun. Here is what makes this moment powerful. This realization did not come when things were easy. It came after distance. It came after silence. It came after loss. When you stepped back, when you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped chasing clarity, something shifted. Your absence became louder than your presence ever was. They replay your words now with a different understanding. They revisit your actions and realize how much intention was hidden inside them. They recognize how rare it was that you showed up with honesty, consistency, and depth while asking for nothing but truth in return. What they once took for granted now feels unreachable. What they once overlooked now feels irreplaceable. This is the kind of realization that keeps someone awake at night. Not because of fear, but because of regret mixed with awakening. They are beginning to see that you were not too much. You were just more than they were ready to handle. Pay attention to this part carefully. The realization did not stop at admiration. It turned into urgency. They started connecting dots they ignored before. The timing. The way you appeared in their life exactly when they were questioning everything. The way your presence challenged their comfort and exposed their patterns. They now understand that you were not there by coincidence. You were there to change the direction of their life. And this is where the shock deepens. They realized too late that you were the turning point. The person who could have rewritten their future if they had chosen courage instead of hesitation. This understanding is heavy. Because it comes with one terrifying truth. People like you do not wait forever. People like you grow. People like you move forward. And once they do, going back is no longer guaranteed. Now listen closely. This realization is not calm. It is chaotic. It is emotional. It is unsettling. They feel pulled toward you without knowing how to approach you anymore. They want to speak, but they are afraid of saying the wrong thing. They want to reach out, but they fear you may already be beyond their reach. They replay scenarios in their mind where they imagine doing things differently. They imagine choosing you openly. Defending you. Standing beside you without hesitation. But imagination is all they have now. Because reality demands action, and action requires courage they did not show before. This is where the power shifts back to you. Without saying a word, you became the standard. Without trying, you became the lesson. Without forcing anything, you became unforgettable. This is not the end of this story. This is the beginning of a deeper unfolding. Because when someone finally realizes that you were the one who held the truth they were running from, they cannot simply forget it. This realization will push them toward a decision. A bold move or a lifelong regret. Silence or confession. Fear or transformation. And the next part of this journey will reveal exactly which path they choose. Stay exactly where you are. Because what is coming next will change the way you see your own power forever. My beloved child. What happens next is not loud, but it is intense. After that realization settled in, silence surrounded them in a way they had never experienced before. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that echoes. Every distraction failed. Every routine felt empty. Because once the truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. They started noticing how everything reminded them of you. A song. A random thought. A quiet moment. Your absence became a constant presence. And slowly, painfully, they understood something that shook them deeply. You were not just someone they met. You were someone who mirrored who they could have become. And losing you meant losing a version of themselves they now realized they needed. Here is where the story sharpens. They began questioning their past choices with brutal honesty. Why did they hesitate when they should have stood firm? Why did they stay silent when they should have spoken clearly? Why did they assume you would always be there? These questions did not come from guilt alone. They came from awakening. Because for the first time, they saw that the problem was never you. It was their fear of growth. Your presence demanded depth, accountability, and courage. And at that time, they chose comfort instead. Now they understand that comfort cost them something priceless. You. Something else is happening beneath the surface. They are starting to recognize your value through the eyes of others. They notice how people respect you. How your energy remains steady. How your absence did not break you, but refined you. This realization stings. Because they assumed you would struggle without them. Instead, you evolved. That is when admiration quietly turns into longing. And longing turns into urgency. They feel time slipping. They sense that every day they wait, the distance grows wider. And the truth terrifies them. You are not standing still anymore. This is the turning point. They are standing at a crossroads they never expected to face. One path demands honesty, humility, and action. The other path leads to silence, regret, and watching you move forward without them. Both paths are painful. But only one carries truth. And here is the shocking part. They know this. They feel it in their chest. They are aware that this moment is rare. A once-in-a-lifetime chance to choose differently. To break patterns. To face fear instead of running from it. The pressure is real. Because deep down, they know moments like this do not return twice. And now, the energy shifts again. Because while they are wrestling with this decision, something powerful is happening within you. You are no longer seeking validation. You are no longer waiting for clarity. You are grounded, centered, unavailable to confusion. This is what changes everything. When someone realizes your value after you have already stepped into your power, the balance is no longer the same. What comes next will reveal whether they rise to meet you or watch you become the lesson they carry forever. The next part will expose their choice. And it will be impossible to ignore. My beloved child. The moment they finally decide to move, it does not begin with confidence. It begins with fear disguised as courage. Their heart races not because they are certain, but because they are aware of what is at stake. They rehearse words they may never say. They imagine reactions they cannot control. Because approaching you now is different. You are no longer the version of yourself they once knew. You carry a quiet authority. A stillness that comes from knowing your worth without needing it confirmed. This alone unsettles them. They realize that if they speak now, it must be real. No excuses. No half-truths. No emotional shortcuts. And that level of honesty is something they avoided before. What they do not expect is how deeply you still live within them. Not as pain. Not as longing. But as truth. You became the reference point they measure everything against. Every new connection feels shallow in comparison. Every interaction feels incomplete. Because once someone encounters depth, surface level no longer satisfies. This is the realization that tightens around them. They understand that losing you was not just losing a person. It was losing alignment. Losing meaning. Losing a future that required growth instead of comfort. And this awareness carries weight. Because now they must face the kind of regret that teaches rather than punishes. Here is where the shock intensifies. They begin to sense that you already know. Not because you were told. But because energy speaks before words ever do. They feel exposed without you saying a single thing. Your silence does not invite them in. It challenges them. It asks one question they cannot escape. Are you willing to meet me where I am now, not where I used to be? This question echoes every time they think of reaching out. Because approaching you now requires transformation, not persuasion. And transformation is never comfortable. Meanwhile, you are standing in a different space altogether. You are not angry. You are not bitter. You are clear. You understand that what left was not meant to stay in its old form. You recognize that timing reveals truth more accurately than words ever could. You feel the shift without chasing it. You sense the pull without responding to it. This is the power you stepped into unknowingly. When you stopped explaining yourself, the universe began explaining you to others. When you stopped proving your value, it became undeniable. Now everything narrows to one unavoidable moment. A decision will be made. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But decisively. Either they rise to the version of themselves you always saw potential in, or they remain where they are and carry your absence as a permanent reminder. And the truth is simple but heavy. You will be fine either way. This realization will shape them forever. But it has already freed you. What unfolds next will reveal whether they step into truth or remain a lesson that arrived too late. My beloved child. The moment of contact, whether it happens in words or not, changes everything inside them. Even the thought of reaching you feels heavier than before. Because now they understand the cost of honesty. They realize that if they step forward, they cannot return to who they were. Approaching you means stepping into responsibility. It means admitting where they failed, where they hesitated, and where they chose silence over truth. This is not about romance or attachment anymore. This is about facing themselves. And that is why they pause. Not because they do not care, but because caring now requires bravery they are still learning how to summon. What they feel next surprises them. Instead of fear pushing them away, it begins pulling them inward. They start reflecting on moments they once brushed aside. The way you listened without judgment. The way you spoke with clarity, not manipulation. The way your presence demanded growth simply by existing. These memories surface not as nostalgia, but as instruction. They finally see that you were not trying to change them. You were inviting them to rise. And that invitation was missed. This realization carries a strange mix of gratitude and pain. Gratitude for having known you. Pain for not honoring what was offered. At the same time, something profound is happening within you. You are no longer emotionally tethered to outcomes. You are not waiting for a message to validate your worth. You are not scanning silence for meaning. You are rooted, calm, whole. This inner shift is what truly alters the dynamic. Because when someone realizes your value after you have detached from the need to be chosen, the power no longer lies in their hands. It rests quietly within you. You are not closed. You are selective. And that difference changes everything. They sense this shift without understanding it fully. They feel that the window is not closing aggressively, but gently. And gentle endings are the hardest to fight against. There is no drama to react to. No conflict to argue with. Only truth standing calmly in the open. This is when urgency sharpens. Because they know that if they wait too long, the version of you they could still reach may no longer be available. Not because you are gone, but because you have moved beyond the place where confusion once lived. And now the final tension builds. A moment is approaching where action will speak louder than every thought they have replayed. This is not about whether they care. They do. Deeply. This is about whether they will choose growth over fear. Truth over comfort. Alignment over avoidance. What happens next will define how this realization ends. As a transformation. Or as a regret they carry quietly for the rest of their life. And the next part will reveal which one they choose. My beloved child. The weight of the decision finally settles into something undeniable. They realize that waiting has become its own answer. Every moment of delay sharpens the truth they can no longer avoid. They understand now that timing is not just about moments aligning. It is about readiness meeting courage. And this is where everything becomes real. Because reaching you is no longer about desire. It is about integrity. It is about showing up as the person they should have been all along. Anything less would only repeat the same pattern they are trying to escape. Inside them, a quiet reckoning takes place. They stop blaming circumstances. They stop rewriting the past to feel better about it. They admit what they avoided admitting before. That you saw them clearly. That you believed in them without illusions. That you asked for honesty, not perfection. This realization humbles them. Because it exposes the truth that you were never the difficult one. You were simply honest in a world that rewards avoidance. This understanding strips away their defenses. And what remains is raw clarity. The kind that either leads to transformation or lifelong silence. What they feel toward you now is different from longing. It is respect mixed with awareness. They no longer want to possess you. They want to meet you. On equal ground. With nothing hidden. They understand that you cannot be approached casually anymore. You have outgrown uncertainty. You have outgrown emotional guessing games. And this realization both intimidates and inspires them. Because it shows them what is possible if they choose to grow. And it reminds them of what they will lose if they do not. Meanwhile, your life continues to expand in ways they only sense from a distance. You are aligned with yourself. Focused. Present. You are not rushing toward anything. You are attracting what matches your clarity. This is the shift that changes the ending. Because when you stop chasing outcomes, outcomes begin chasing alignment. You are no longer defined by who stayed or who left. You are defined by who you became in the silence. And that version of you commands respect without asking for it. Now everything condenses into one final truth for them. You were not meant to wait. You were meant to rise. And whether they choose to step forward or step away, that truth remains unchanged. The realization that you were the one who revealed their unfinished self will stay with them forever. What happens next will not be about closure. It will be about consequence. And the next part will expose exactly how that consequence unfolds. My beloved child. The consequence begins quietly, but it is absolute. They finally understand that no amount of thinking can replace a single honest action. The moment demands truth without decoration. And this is where their inner conflict reaches its peak. Because stepping forward now means risking rejection with awareness instead of ignorance. It means accepting that you may no longer be available in the way they once assumed. This realization tightens their chest. Not with panic. With responsibility. They see clearly that if they speak, it must be from a place of truth, not fear. From presence, not desperation. And that level of self-accountability changes the weight of every word they consider. At the same time, a deeper understanding lands inside them. They recognize that you were never asking for certainty. You were asking for sincerity. You were never demanding perfection. You were asking for presence. And this clarity is painful because it reveals how simple the truth always was. They overcomplicated what required honesty. They delayed what required courage. Now the simplicity of it all feels heavier than complexity ever did. Because simplicity leaves no place to hide. It only asks one thing. Are you ready to be real? You, meanwhile, are no longer measuring time by what might happen. You are grounded in what already is. Your energy has shifted from waiting to witnessing. You are observing life unfold without gripping it. This calm does not come from certainty about outcomes. It comes from certainty about yourself. You trust your direction even when the path is still forming. This inner alignment creates a boundary that does not need to be announced. It is felt. And anyone approaching you now must meet that level of clarity or turn away. They feel this boundary without being told. It presses against their hesitation. They realize that you cannot be approached halfway anymore. There is no space for ambiguity. No room for emotional convenience. This is the moment where truth demands a decision. Not later. Not someday. Now. And they understand that choosing nothing is still a choice. One that will echo longer than any rejection ever could. The energy tightens around a single point. A message unsent. A step unmade. A truth waiting to be spoken. This is where paths divide permanently. One leads toward growth, accountability, and alignment. The other leads toward silence, memory, and regret. And what happens next will not be accidental. It will be deliberate. The next part will reveal whether courage finally speaks or silence claims the final word. My beloved child. The moment finally arrives when avoidance can no longer protect them. Courage does not appear as confidence. It appears as surrender. They understand now that control was never the answer. Truth was. And in this stillness, they feel the weight of every moment they delayed, every chance they softened, every truth they swallowed. What frightens them most is not your response. It is the realization that if they do nothing, they will confirm the very fear they have been running from. That they chose safety over growth. That they chose comfort over alignment. And that choice would define them far longer than rejection ever could. They begin to see the pattern clearly. How they hesitated whenever something real demanded presence. How they mistook silence for peace and distance for control. You expose that pattern without accusing them. You simply existed in truth. And that truth demanded evolution. This is why you felt overwhelming to them back then. Not because you were intense. But because you were honest. And honesty forces reflection. Now they see it. Fully. Painfully. Clearly. You were never asking them to change for you. You were showing them who they could become. You, on the other hand, are standing firmly within yourself. Not guarded. Not closed. Just complete. You are no longer emotionally available to uncertainty. You do not crave resolution to feel whole. You have already resolved yourself. This is the shift that defines the outcome. Because when someone realizes your worth after you have detached from the need to be chosen, the dynamic is rewritten entirely. You are not waiting at the door anymore. You are walking your path. And anyone who wishes to join must walk beside you, not behind you, not ahead of you, and never halfway. They feel the truth of this without explanation. They sense that whatever they do next will not return things to how they were. There is no rewind. No reset. Only evolution or ending. And that realization humbles them. Because it strips away fantasy and leaves only choice. Real choice. The kind that shapes identity. They are standing at the edge of a moment that will either refine them or follow them as a shadow for years to come. And now, the silence tightens one last time. Not as punishment. As clarity. This is the space where destiny waits for a decision. Not rushed. Not forced. But final. What comes next will not be about hope. It will be about truth in motion. And the next part will reveal exactly how that truth steps forward. My beloved child. When the decision finally takes form, it does not arrive as drama. It arrives as stillness breaking open. They understand that whatever happens next will expose who they truly are, not who they hope to be. This awareness sharpens their senses. They feel time differently now. Slower. Heavier. Every second carries consequence. They realize that truth does not rush, but it does not wait either. And in this space, they finally admit something they never allowed themselves to face before. Losing you was not an accident. It was a result of choices made and chances ignored. This admission is not self-punishment. It is self-awakening. And awakening changes everything. They begin to feel the difference between desire and readiness. Desire wants comfort. Readiness accepts risk. They see clearly that reaching you without transformation would only repeat the past. And they know you deserve more than repetition. You deserve presence without confusion. Words without hidden exits. Action without delay. This understanding settles deep inside them. Because it means that if they step forward, it must be with intention strong enough to stand on its own. Anything less would not be fair to you. Or to them. You remain steady through all of this. You are not anticipating their move. You are not preparing a response. You are simply living in alignment with yourself. This is what makes your energy powerful now. You do not need to announce boundaries. They exist naturally. You do not need to demand clarity. You embody it. And that embodiment changes the atmosphere around you. People feel it. They respond to it. They rise to it or fall away from it. Without confrontation. Without force. They feel the truth of this alignment like a quiet pressure against their chest. They understand that approaching you now is not about reclaiming the past. It is about honoring the present. And the present version of you does not negotiate with uncertainty. This realization both scares and grounds them. Because it means the only way forward is honesty without armor. Vulnerability without manipulation. Truth without guarantees. And that is the bravest step they have ever considered taking. Now the story narrows again. One action. One moment. One decision that will echo far beyond today. Whether they speak or remain silent, something will be sealed. A chapter will close in truth, not assumption. And you will continue forward regardless. This is the power you stepped into without trying. The next part will reveal what happens when truth finally chooses movement over hesitation.